August 13, 2015 meeting of the Stoughton High School Building Committee. Gonna fiddle with the agenda a little bit because we're waiting for Scott to come with some materials he has with him. But it's the beginning of the meeting where we open up for public participation. Anybody who wishes to address the committee. I say that for the people at home watching more than the people who aren't in the room to address the committee. So, moving on from item 1 down to Dominic, item 5, schedule update.
Item 5, I just wanted to, we've been in discussions in regards to the PDP, or the proposed design program. And we'll get into more of that in the front end, but I just wanted to, I'm sorry about that. So in regards to schedule, you'll find from DRA that we've been advancing the ed plan, the space summary, and the facilities assessment in the last month to the point where we're ready to make a presentation. We're going to discuss it tonight, and we're ready to make a presentation to the school committee at the end of the month. And I believe that the date that we had talked about was August 27th. We can confirm that. That being said, the goal, too, is that we present this PDP to the Mass School Building Authority on the 7th of September. Is that correct, Carl?
Thereabouts.
Thereabouts.
It's not a hard and fast deadline on their end, but it's what we targeted initially, so. I got this one, right? So they kind of pencil it into their calendars that that's the day we've committed to, I believe. It was that week. It might have said the week of the 7th, September 7th, that we would submit it.
So in regards to our schedule, we are hitting the milestones that we set ourselves for going forward. The item that I wanted to talk about was we had talked about in September we would have our next public forum or community forum. There was some discussion out there about having it at the senior center, so I thought this would be a good time just to talk about the next community forum. The first community forum I thought went well. I am getting more emails coming through on the site, all positive, all wanting to help out, and and one of them was actually, I won't use people's names, obviously, but somebody was saying, you know, it would be great to do a tour where, you know, we go to some of the other schools just to show what, you know, Norwood has done and Natick has done, you know, just to get the band rolling here in Stoughton. So it's been very good as far as that outreach through social media. So, and Gene Ostra's done a very good job with that too. And so the communication is going. So I thought, was there any comments about the next community meeting? I know, Joel, you had talked about the idea or two of possibly the senior center.
Yeah, actually, if I could, TJ, I kind of, at one of our working meetings, I volunteered to be the point person with the senior community in Stoughton, primarily because I'm the oldest person in the room. So I just wanted to be able to tell them that even, yeah.
Oh, Mike.
Oh, sorry.
I can still catch when you say Mike, I look up.
Sorry about that.
So if you guys are okay with that, then if I have your blessing, then I will do that. In fact, I will actually start tomorrow by contacting the senior center and meeting with them, and hopefully, does the Council on Aging have a regular meeting, Mike?
They do have a regular meeting, Karen Hall can tell you
All right, I'll talk to her, and we'll set something up, and we'll get things moving along here. And thank you very much for giving me the name of that gentleman, who I will also contact and let him know. And while I am there, I will talk to them about having the next forum at the senior center itself. So I will take care of that.
That's a good idea. Thanks for volunteering for that, Joel.
Well, you get to a certain age, Rick.
I think you're still far wide of the mark, so.
What was that?
You want to talk to Karen Hall?
Yeah, no, I figured as much, yeah.
Are we talking Karen?
Well,
Well, Karen is what I remembered.
wanted
So.
to, so just to follow up, Joel, with what you're
Yeah.
saying is we should look at some dates, maybe the third week in September or something to that effect. Do you think it's prudent to do it on a Saturday? Is it prudent to do it on a Friday evening?
Well,
Thursday
actually, let me talk to the people at the senior center and find out what their schedule is and whether if it's okay if they're open on a Saturday. I don't really know. I've been to the building, but I really don't know that.
But you're not a
much about
member.
it. No, well, not really a member. Let's just say I qualify. Okay? But for the most part, I'll find out, and what I'll do is I'll send you and TJ the results of what comes up, and then we can make a decision. Hopefully, a week from tomorrow, we're having our working group. We should be able to figure it out by that time about when we can do it and how we can do it.
All right.
Great.
Any questions?
So just make a note that
You're
I'm going to
the
do
oldest.
this in the minutes.
You're the oldest?
Every other week.
No. I just want to make sure that when I go down there, they say, "Who are you again?" And I said, "Well, there was this meeting."
Okay. While Scott catches his breath, why don't we move down to just we have additional services for a vote. In the program, a couple of items weren't a part of the proposal by Compass and by the architect DRA. One is the geotech work that needs to be done, and the other is the survey of the property. Now that we know what the property is, we're surveying the property. So we had a proposal, we went out for a proposal and got bids in from geotech firms and surveying firms. DRA presented last week at our working group. The firm of GZA was the lowest and qualified bidder of service for geotech. I had presented that Thompson Farland for survey was the lowest. I got 5 bids on that. What we're asking is that this committee vote to approve the additional services provided by DRA and Compass going forward, which is within our budget.
Do you have the numbers?
The numbers are, for GZA, the amount of $22,150. I don't know, we need to do that individually, the vote.
No, I just want to.
Okay. And Thompson Farland survey, the amount is $21,450.
That's Thompson Farland.
Thompson Farland out of New Bedford.
Okay, so I move that we recommend award of contract to GCA for $22,150 for the geotechnical, and the amount of award to Thompson Farland, the amount of $21,450 for the site survey. That
Can I
would
ask
be
a
my-
question? Can you tell me what these 2 vendors are gonna do exactly?
Have it in front of me, if I can
Uh,
pass it on my email if you, go ahead.
It's very, well, the site survey is very detailed, but what they're going to be doing is the entire, pass that along. In a nutshell, we're going to be doing 232 Pearl Street, the complete topographic, all the details of that site itself, going through what we delineated as the possible areas that we may affect in the future, whether it's an ad reno or a new building, including the fields between the middle school and the elementary school. So as you can see, that proposal there that you're reading through, what the surveyor is providing. I'll just ask Scott to talk about GZA real quick.
Yeah, we're doing preliminary geotechnical borings to determine what the substrate material on the site is. So this will tell us exactly what the soil composition is at various depths. They'll give us recommendations, preliminary recommendations as to what our foundation design will be. So right now we're just kind of doing a pretty wide coverage, broad coverage of the site. I think we've identified 20 boring locations. They'll advance the auger 60 feet into the ground or to ledge, whichever they hit first. If they hit bedrock, they'll stop at that point, because that tells us, you know, we can bear on ledge certainly. And just to clarify, this is a preliminary series of borings. Once we identify where the building location is and where the major roadways and parking areas are, then we'll want to do a more comprehensive geotechnical survey around the building prior to putting together the final bid documents. The more geotechnical data we have at this point in the project and prior to putting together the final construction documents, the less exposure we have for unforeseen conditions later on when the excavation is actually going on.
Is this a change in scope? It's additional services that are being requested?
It's not a change in scope, it's not a change in scope, no,
Okay.
but
It's
it's.
just typically services that are
outside
not
of our
part of the
contract.
architect's, standard contract,
Okay.
because it varies so much from site to site, or how many sites to.
Okay.
Actually,
So,
it says it in the contract.
It was anticipated as part of our budget.
I
Right.
didn't see it there, that's why I was asking.
Is it at all disruptive to like the opening of school?
No,
and how school
no,
operates and
we
everything?
actually, survey part is very, unobtrusive.
Yeah, that's pretty-
The geotech, we're actually, we jumped the gun, but they were here today.
I think they were either here today or tomorrow, they're gonna dig
Yeah,
safe the site
yeah,
tomorrow,
so-
and hopefully we'll be
so-
scheduling the borings. for
So
next
they'll
week
be,
sometime.
they'll be out of the way before the kids
And any
are,
holes they make, they fill in.
they fill right up.
The boring in the middle of the football field just when practice starts, which Julie asked that. so.
Can we put some of those borings up on the wall in the school? So if there weren't any other questions, then I'd like to second Joel's motion.
Just a point of clarification, though, the amount that Dom suggested is the base contract
Oh,
amount for
okay.
For GZA.
Yeah.
The actual amendment would
Yeah.
include a markup for DRA
Right.
because they would be a consultant to us,
Yeah,
so
do
we
you-
do the
oh, so you
coordination
have,
work.
what was the amount?
The amount is $24,365.
Yeah, 65.
For GZA,
For GZA, okay,
24,365.
yeah.
Geotechnical services, yeah.
What about the surveying?
It included the markup.
Oh, the 21,450 includes the markup?
Yep.
All right, so I'd like to amend my motion to recommend for GZA at $24,365 and Thompson Farland for $21,450.
I'll second that one too.
Why, thank you.
My pleasure.
I don't have a problem, I was looking at something, this GZA submission says 22,150, and, that's July 23rd.
Wait a minute, you have the amendments here.
Come on. Oh, there was a further amendment since.
No, let's just see, we have the backup right here.
22,150 is correct, TJ,
Oh,
Is it, oh,
for GZA. And then because they're a consultant to us, we administer their
And then you
services, we
put-
take responsibility.
temp-
okay.
for the
it's in,
markup.
I believe it's Article 10 in the professional services, that there's a 10% markup.
I must actually, can we, something like that, can we send it out? Yeah, this did go to me, so, but it can go to everyone else.
Yeah, I'd love to see a copy of that.
Just for future events like that. All right, motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Nothing? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Nay? Nobody? Unanimous?
Okay. Next order of business, we're just going to jump back up to item number 2 in our topics of space planning, and DRA and Julie and Dr. Rizzi has been working very hard on coordinating and discussing, and really the 3 items you're going to see coming in concurrently on the agenda: high school space, existing site options, and educational plan. So Scott's going to be passing out the space summary. Is that what I have? No, there you go.
So as Don pointed out, we at the working group level last week, we went through in detail the educational program. And Julie, was that distributed, the updated educational program?
The one that we talked about today?
Yeah,
No, not yet.
no, okay,
Yeah.
Working group wants to see it first.
okay. All right,
It's
so.
up to 41 pages, though, just so everyone knows.
It's up to 48 after our meeting this morning.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
Single space.
So we went through in detail the educational program last Friday, page by page, and there were comments from Compass and DRA and the other working group members for Julie and Maggie to incorporate or consider incorporating into the educational program. So during that meeting on Friday, we identified several areas where there were slight discrepancies between the educational program, the written 48-page narrative, and the space summary. And the space summary is sort of what we use as a guide along with the educational program to understand the physical requirements, square footages, and all of the spaces that are required. So this morning, we scheduled a meeting with Julie, with DRA and Compass, to specifically go through sort of program area by program area, each area, reviewed it in the ed program, and made sure that we were reconciling with the proposed space summary. And what we identified, just to highlight a few things, I won't go through all of them, but this column that happens between the total column, the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth column, and the sixth column, there's a white column there that has some numbers in it, plus 1,500, minus 250. Those were the adjustments that we made today to the proposed space summary relative to calibrating it with the educational program. So in general, we found in most areas we were right on target, but there were a couple red flags that we talked through, and in talking through them, we came to understand that there was a lot of, we were alarmed that, for example, the ed program called for 12 science rooms. MSBA's guidelines suggest 10. We only had 10 in the program. That would be a lot of square footage to add to the program. But in studying it in a little bit more detail, we identified that some of the labs that were identified under technology spaces, some of the robotics labs were considered to be the science rooms that were described in the narrative. So we had it covered. We just had to rename some things. So now you can kind of walk through the proposed space summary and the educational program, and you can kind of follow line by line. And we've reconciled a lot of the terminology for the different spaces and the square footage requirements. We increased the size of the 2 music rooms based on the actual required capacity of those spaces. We added 300 square feet to music. We added 200 square feet to choral. You'll see a lot of plus minuses, like originally we had 3 art classrooms at 1,200 square feet. One of those needs to be a digital lab, which actually requires less space than a full art room with all the art tubs and sinks and all the additional storage requirements. So we had plus 1,200. We subtracted 1,200 from the general art classrooms, added 1,000 square feet for the digital lab. The technology classrooms are, it's under technology classroom at the bottom of the first page. They're actually business classrooms. They wanted 4 business classrooms. We only had 3, but we did have another room identified as a TV production classroom, and that was the 4th business classroom that was required as part of the educational program. So long story short, well, I guess not that short, but long story short is that after we did all the pluses and minuses, and we've got this reconciled as tightly as we can right now to the educational program, we only increased by about 425 square feet. So essentially the building size wasn't impacted at all by the exercise today, but we added in some spaces, we subtracted some spaces. Another one I should highlight, 2 others I should highlight is as of this morning when we started our meeting, we only had 1 large group room, which was also our so-called black box theater. It could be adapted for either use, a large group or for black box. We actually, Julie made the argument, a compelling argument. It's a compelling argument within the educational program that we really need those 2 spaces to be able to efficiently run both programs. We need a black box theater that's really going to function as a black box theater and complement our drama program a large percentage of the time, while we still need the flexibility to have a large group room where we can bring multiple classes into, have the technology, have the smart projector, have the infrastructure there to run a larger group lecture type of setting. Guest speakers, yeah. And also the track that was previously identified, the walking track in the gymnasium, that was removed from the program. I think that was a consensus both amongst the working group as well as the building committee.
So let me ask a quick question if I could. The total on the 3rd page, the NFA net floor area, 146,055,
Yep.
includes all these changes.
Correct, right.
That's what I'm, okay.
And the previous one, Joel, was like it was 145.7 something.
The other point we should clarify
Got
too
it.
is that this program of spaces is just for the high school, not for the central office, the superintendent's office. Those were
that's a good point.
edited out, any district offices.
Is that for the time being, Carl? I know we talked about this before. Are you going to submit this as part of the program?
For our discussion, but that's the way,
Is it a problem that we're over the square footage recommended by?
No, it's
SBA
just
guidelines?
not reimbursable.
Right.
not automatically, Joel, but that's a possibility.
Okay.
That some
Oh, I'm
percentage
just,
of it, it's
I'm
not.
talking about the district stuff,
Oh,
okay, I'm
yes,
sorry,
the
yeah.
district, but-
District is not
But the
reimbursable.
fact that,
Talking about our 146,055 versus
Rick,
the
yeah,
137.
there's a possibility some, or maybe all of that, they'll say is not reimbursable. But this is really the start of that conversation. It doesn't get determined for a few months here, but when we submit this, there'll be some comments, and what they'll really do is what Scott just walked through. They'll take the program and say, how are you justifying that you need this many classrooms or this many spaces? And if it's justifiable, and if they can see that it's gonna be utilized, you know, to the extent they like to see, it's not gonna sit empty,
Right.
you know, a specialized space or something, then they may well include it as reimbursable.
Julie hired a negotiating team for this.
think you were looking
She's got,
at it.
she's got,
I'm looking at
she's
it
got to put her
already.
face on.
What, it brought
Just
you
got to
that
cave right away.
Not to butter Julie up, she doesn't need to be buttered up, but she and Dr. Rizzi did a great job with the ed plan.
That's great.
Even at the draft level, was pretty detailed with tweaks, and now continues. And that will help justify, I think, in front of the MSBA, you know, they're not just going to just push back on a whim. There's a backup for the justification of the educational program. So I think it's a good head start here of getting what you need to do your educational, you know, charge to the students here. So.
All right, so we are going with the auditorium that you guys want and the stage size that you guys want. And we've talked about this in the past too. In fact, we actually talked about it when we had a kickoff meeting with the MSBA, so.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, the MSBA likes to limit the size of the auditorium.
Right, well, that was the question I was gonna ask, because I see gymnasium, 6,750, and then over here, 1,200. So what's the number?
No,
The
gymnasium.
proposed column, Roberta, is the middle one, where the totals are.
Okay.
So that's everything that's being proposed for the school, whether
So-
it's a renovation or new.
Okay, so as of now, the gym is 6,750.
That's your existing gym, right?
And you wanna make it 12,000.
Don't think we're going to have a problem with that. The problem is with the auditorium. The auditorium, the MSBA suggests 7,100 square feet, and we are proposing 8,520. This is so that we can get more people into the auditorium for the arts and
Band.
things. Well,
You put the band on stage and
gotta
the
fit everybody in there, so.
in the audience.
All right, so my question
Surprised they
to
pushed
you
back
is,
on the
the
auditorium.
MSBA
Yeah,
could
they-
say no to these.
Graduation.
Schools making that.
There's usually a little back and forth.
Right,
It's
and
not
we could,
very fast.
and we could ask for a waiver on some of these things, too.
We can try and make a case for things, right? Right.
Well, and you guys back me up on this, but because I've only been in a couple projects and you've been in more, but Roberta, what's kind of happened here is that, just like you say, there's some back and forth, and they say, well, if you want to increase the size of the auditorium, you can, but for a certain percentage of that, we're not going to make that cost as a reimbursable cost. That happens. I'm not
Right,
too
no, I
worried about that.
understand that.
What we're really worried about is that we're asking for something where they basically say, if you really insist on having this, it's a game.
Well, that was gonna
That's
be
it.
my
We're not
next
going to do
question.
anything with you.
So why is the gym, why are we requesting the gym going from 67 to 12? I don't know, that's why I'm asking.
Oh, she can answer better than me.
Well, 12 really is
12
a
is-
two-station, high school-sized
It's a
gym.
standard size
A
high
lot
school
of
gym.
schools are putting in.
Yes. It's
That's-
actually
that's what they
small
allow,
compared to some of the new schools.
Plus
Uh,
they're
their
recommending,
guideline.
That's
it's
what
within
their
their
guideline is.
recommendation.
Guideline, right?
Their
Yeah,
guideline's 12.
the guideline is
Want
12,000.
to max that?
But Norwood and Whitman, the model school, is bigger than
I
that.
think we're gun shy. but
And our
we're-
current
right.
gymnasium is far
Right, and
too
I think
small,
the
you can't
community
go by
will
that
buy into
67.
certain things that the community
I-
can.
No, well, that's why I'm asking, why is it going to 12? Because that's the standard, that's what you're
That's so you
saying.
can have both, you know, a full-size basketball court with a reasonable number of bleachers, and also divide it in half and have 2 gym classes at the same time.
But at the end of the day, it's less square footage than you got today. You've got 24,399 today.
That was one of my questions
For-
during the
for which
working group.
category?
Well,
For
say
health
the
and
health
physical
Health and phys ed,
education,
because of
yeah.
the size of locker
That's
rooms.
because of the
Locker
locker
room.
The
rooms.
lockers was huge.
Locker room
In
is
its
huge.
day, people took showers both at gym class and all the sports teams, and there was a tremendous, you know, you can see it's what difference between 6,000 square feet of lockers and 10,000.
Yeah.
And the health classroom is gone.
And the health
It's
classroom
just a regular
is counted among the general classrooms.
So that's where you're making it up.
Yes, those are 2 main changes right there.
I think the big issue for me is, and Joel just referred to this, and at the working group, we had quite a bit of discussion about the auditorium. And what MSBA allows and what we're prescribing are vastly different, but that's not the important thing, because I wouldn't be averse to going in front of MSBA and saying, you know, this is important to us under our educational plan, but sitting in the room with them, and particularly Mary Piketty,
Yep.
that was her name?
Yes.
She made clear, after some discussion, she left a glimmer of hope. She said, well, we'll consider anything that you, I don't want to mischaracterize it, but generally what
Right.
she said is we'll consider anything you put in front of us. But that was after about 5 minutes of discussing why that's inefficient space and MSBA won't pay for that, and that was a non-starter to the project generally.
So she was open to it.
So that's why I said I was against when we discussed it at the, I wasn't, you know, stridently against it, but I was more in favor of fighting for those things that I thought were workable within their template, and not something that they would send us back
Right.
on whole with. So, and, you know, it's difficult to, you know,
Because it's not education.
well,
Well, it
Everything
is and
Well,
it
I'm
isn't.
just-
everything that I'm basing,
Science lab is more important.
well, everything that I'm basing, what I'm basing on is just from sitting in the room with her and listening to her tell us, no, we're not paying for that. You know, or actually, I forget how exactly she said it, but that was
You're being nice.
a non-starter to the project generally if we,
And what was this for,
One.
TJ?
that was for an additional, how many seats in
They
the
usually
auditorium?
cap the size of an auditorium to 2/3 of the enrollment.
Yeah.
The superintendent was trying to make the case for the entire enrollment being able to be
Sure.
seated in the auditorium.
We had quite a bit of discussion over the course of maybe 3 meetings or so over this. We have capacity for 900 and some odd seats right now. MSBA will pay for 700 and something.
750.
750, and we're looking for a full student body of 1,056, I think it is, whatever it is.
65.
Thinking,
1,065, that's my dyslexia.
in the long run, the way the calculations work is they value construction to not exceed, I think, $299 a square foot now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So what they'll do is they'll come up with a square footage that they believe is the square footage that they're willing to reimburse you for $299 a square foot. Anything beyond that, including additional auditorium size or anything like that, theory, they'll say, well, you can build it, but you won't get reimbursed for it.
Right.
Okay?
We've
I'm
had
not-
projects that have exceeded
Oh, yeah.
their template.
I've
and
seen it
gotten
too,
reimbursed.
yeah. Yeah. And I'm not too worried about that. What I was worried about is what you were talking about earlier, is when it came across from Mary Pachetti that if you guys really insist on this, forget it, there's no deal on anything.
Yeah, but by putting it, I'm under the impression that it's in our ed plan, that's what we want. But
Yes.
then there's discussion that ensues. It's not like they're just gonna pick up the ed plan, read it, and say, forget it.
No, they're not
They're
gonna do
asking-
that. You're
Right,
correct.
so there's gonna be discussion, and there should be
Yes.
some give and take.
Yes.
My reason for not backing down at this point is, one, they're asking us to build an auditorium that's smaller than the auditorium we have now, which is already inadequate. We will not be able to have graduation in the auditorium. And I know that there's the argument that you can have in the gymnasium, but it is certainly not the same. It is not the same atmosphere, it's not the same, you know, it's just not the same. And so why would I ask for something less than what we already have if it's already inadequate? And why wouldn't I ask for something more?
One of the things that Mary Piketty did when we were talking, and again, someone correct me, because I'm getting older, not as old as all you people, but
Was he looking at me?
But she counted days. I think it was Dr. Rizzi said, well, we have 2 concerts here and there, and Mary said, so that's 2 days out of the year. And you could see where her mind was going. She
Right,
was
that's
saying
one
how,
of her criteria,
Yeah.
utilization, as they call it. How
Right.
many periods of the day, how many days of the
Community
year.
usage?
But that's a surprising thing, where it's a
Town meeting?
community school, you can use it for a number of community events.
Well,
The
that
whole
was-
district can use
Huh.
it in terms of sending kids over for
Yeah,
fifth
but-
grade graduation or whatever it is.
I happen to agree with you,
It's
but
hard to believe, you know, schools now, I mean, they probably don't look at this, but you can rent out spaces, you know?
I don't want to see that in front of the MSBA.
Well, I'm just saying, you know? So that's what I would think about as a taxpayer, too.
Didn't you
Well, I
also make
agree.
reference to the gymnasium, that the gymnasium, you could make, if you needed a full student assembly, you could do it in the gymnasium?
That's what Julie was bringing up, but it's not the
It's
same.
not adequate.
We have
My
in
opinion.
some
Julie's saying
projects
it's not adequate.
Yeah,
enhanced
Right.
the gymnasium by putting in air conditioning, putting in larger bleachers. In other words, you know, you have a certain kind of stop on the bleachers when you're at a basketball game, but for an all-school assembly, you can pull them out further, putting in enhanced lighting and sound systems as a way to compensate
Yes.
if it came to that.
And they'll reimburse you for all that?
well, you don't,
Oh, you don't?
well,
Maybe not the air conditioning, but
Yeah.
the lights and sound system and the bleachers, yes.
it's all part of it,
Yeah.
part of the, yeah.
But there's always a tag along where then you're purchasing, for graduation, you're purchasing chairs. And you have to find places to store those chairs because, you know, it's just, so there's always. Or renting, yeah.
I
Well-
get it. I'd like Julie's approach in terms of if we can put it forward in the proposal as an opening dialogue, but if it kills the deal right from the get-go, then I
but-
understand what Roberta.
But no, the truth is, as Julie said, it's a discussion. And right now, we've written a program, and we're matching it up to the space, and we're presenting it.
In reality, we're, what, about a little more than 5% over their number. 5% would be 10,000 square feet. We're 12,000 square feet over, right?
mean,
216,000
net total?
versus 204.
Well, that's with the,
That's perfectly reasonable.
that's with the grossing factor of 1.48, but you guys are very efficient architects.
Yeah, but we don't want to
So
give
you're
that
saying
up right
that's
now,
not
Joe.
too-
That's in
I
our
don't
back
push
pocket
that.
for later.
Oh, really?
But you know, in the auditorium, how do you disagree with the argument that what we have now is inadequate? Why would we settle for less? It makes no sense.
only because if they tell us that they're not paying for it
Right.
Okay.
and that they're not funding the project, then we have to go to redesign.
Wait a
So
minute.
I would say we can
What if we-
incorporate that, but
what if we
with
said
an
we
eye
pay the
towards.
difference?
Well,
Yes.
that's,
That was just it.
That's the likely course.
Y-
Right.
we're hoping that's the way it's going to
That
turn
would be
out.
the best case.
They
That's-
wouldn't stop this project just
No.
because of that differential. No.
Well, politically, it'd probably be a pretty bad move on their part.
Yeah, the funding component was,
Want the
though,
public at the schools.
this,
Out.
the funding wasn't the issue. It was the broad approval that was the issue.
Right.
Okay.
And I would say, just for my own part, design with an eye towards them coming back and saying, find some other way to use that space, because you can't have,
Well,
I'm just,
Yeah.
from her tone, I was confident that it wasn't a fight we were gonna win, so I'd rather win fights than lose fights, so.
If they let you
Can I
increase
have
the
a-
gym space
ask a
because you use
couple
classes.
questions?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
No.
Julie, I remember Dr. Rizzi saying that they put a lot of stuff into training for the athletic teams. Is the 1,500 square feet for the, what do we got for the weight room
weight
here?
training.
Weight training, is that going to be enough? Because it comes down substantially from the 3,200.
Yeah.
Well,
But the existing space used to be a gym, right?
exactly. The weight room now
Got
is
it.
just a former,
nice-
what is it, girls' gym.
Yes.
So
It's a nice space.
Offensively.
that's
Girls'
why
gym, the girls'
It really
gym.
is.
it's
Okay.
It's
oversized.
yeah, in most schools.
Yeah.
Excellent utilization of that space.
I don't think they're gonna give us that, you know.
I don't know.
What is alternatives, PE
Oh,
alternatives
no.
and fitness?
Yeah, they're
Ju-
very
just
into the
to-
fitness centers and,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, all the new schools.
Fitness and weight room, that's fine.
Mhm.
What is PE alternatives / fitness?
That's our gym now, that used to be the old weight room. It's in between the girls' gym and the large gym.
It's where you do things
And
like
it's, it
yoga
would be,
or
yep, yoga,
aerobics or-
dance.
Oh, it's that small studio.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
opposed to weight
Rick,
room,
you and I
just
can go there for
fitness
yoga
weight.
classes.
There you go. We're in.
I like the media center size. I think that's a good thing. I know Dr. Rizzi was very adamant about making sure we had a good-sized media center.
Mhm.
And everything else, the scramble serving area, what is that in the
That's where the
cafeteria?
children go in to actually pick out what items they want to eat. Like the, you know.
As
Yeah.
opposed to having a straight line, cafeteria line, everybody with a tray going down the
Right.
line.
You
It's
go
more
and
of a
grab
food-
stuff
There's
out of
multiple
more of a food
different,
court.
yeah.
You can
Got
go
it.
get a sandwich, you can get a salad,
Got
you
it,
can get a
got
it.
burger.
Got it,
You
okay.
don't wait in line and everybody process through a long straight line.
And you did eliminate the staff lunchroom.
Yes.
We don't use it now. And we're hoping to build those planning rooms scattered throughout the building that are going to have, you know, a microwave and refrigerator, et cetera, and teachers would utilize that space
I
much
think
more than they
the
would use
last
the
4
staff room.
schools I did over the past 10 years and
Yeah.
never used the staff dining room.
Yeah, they
It just-
don't.
Just sat there, nothing. In Milton, there's a bunch of empty
Sometimes
rooms.
they comment on the quality of the food. They haven't-
Cafeteria's a lot smaller.
Mhm.
That's true.
But it's large enough for 3 seatings.
Oh,
so
I know,
sort of,
I know.
yeah.
The other thing we hacked over quite a bit at the working group level was, if you look on the last page, the district offices. And I think what we decided at the last working group was to keep it in
That's what I thought.
as at least a placeholder.
Carl, yeah, you remember it, or?
I wasn't there, but that's what I was
It was in the
reading the
minutes.
minutes.
that's what we did decide.
Yeah, we
Yeah, keep it in for now, and because.
Take it out later, or we have to?
Was that we could always take it out later.
It's,
Okay.
we're talking about IT and district
Yeah.
offices. It's
Is that your
Both of them, yeah.
recommendation?
not in
The
here.
the
It's
thing is,
existing, but it's- there's
we have a
no-
diagram.
I know, that's what we're saying. We're gonna put it in.
Oh, you're gonna put it back in.
It's an
Yeah.
updated one.
Okay.
Things from
It'll
last
be
time.
non-reimbursable, everybody knows that, but I would rather
It does
go to the
affect-
MSBA and say, we're contemplating building a building that has this in it, then come back later and say, oh, by the way.
Well, it does affect this diagram too, though. Because if we have to create sort of a, you know, adjacencies diagram for the high school with the superintendent's office in it, we need to show that on here. And it adds a, you know, a little bit of a level of complexity because it needs a dedicated entrance, a dedicated parking area generally.
But why would you have to show the adjacency on here, Carl?
If it's on this program,
But you have to show it on the adjacency diagram? I mean,
so.
I always think of it as just something like a separate part of the building that, like you just said, with its own entrance and,
well, but it has to, I mean, if it's physically part of the same building.
They'll want to see it if you
Yeah.
list it on here.
Yeah.
okay, that's
Yeah.
fine. This architect speak, I can never figure out.
I'm getting dizzy looking at this.
Is this all enclosed?
Too many circles.
Looks like the
Yeah.
space station.
Looks like one of those drones that they've been talking about.
Well, it's somewhat intentional that it doesn't look like a building, that, you know.
Make you think about the space.
But
It is.
but every circle or rectangle is a space, generally,
Within one building.
on the
This whole
program.
thing is
And
a
this is
building.
all one building,
With
Probably some
under one
better.
roof, ultimately.
proportionate to the size that it's in the diagram, approximately.
A little bit, a little bit.
No.
It's not meant to be.
But keep
real
in mind too,
accurate.
that this could be on multiple levels.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is
A
only
three-story building.
two-dimensional, the real building will
Right.
have, in our initial studies of the site, probably a high probability it'll be a 3-story building in order to utilize the site most efficiently. So you'd be taking some of these things and stacking them, so.
To
this
give
is
you an
a-
idea, this is kind of this is a working diagram, right? We started with this one this morning, and during the discussion, we talked about connections, we talked about where the school store would go, where the world language lab needs to go, what departmental offices needed to be adjacent to each other. So this continues to evolve as we start to get more refined about this, put in all the spaces, and continue to interview the faculty and the superintendent and the principal about understanding where things go. And this sort of is the stepping stone for us building our first conceptual floor plans.
I think a couple of important concepts that you can grasp from this. First of all, there are what we might refer to as public areas of the building and more academic areas of the building. So the auditorium and gym, obviously the two biggest public parts of it, they want to be somewhat isolatable from the rest of the school. So nights and weekends, you can open up those parts and they're somewhat self-sufficient. The other thing to notice on the academic side of it, first of all, the classrooms are broken up into groupings, smaller groupings. It implies that it's not going to be just one continuous corridor with classrooms on both sides, that the building has smaller units. Initially, they're probably departments. That's the way the school's organized today, but it might evolve in the future to something different. Might be a 9th grade house. And so, you know, English, math, science, languages are all taught in that house. But, you know, initially this might be the English, this might be math, this might be social studies.
Does the working group, or Julia, have you, I mean, seeing this on paper, I kind of conceptually, I've been around to a few new schools, so I can kind of see it, but have people been able to see other schools that have broken up this way, so they kind of have a feel for what that looks like?
In the working group?
Well, whether it's a working group, whether
I
it's
see what
you and
you're
Dr.
saying,
Rizzi, or, you know, I mean,
I've-
sometimes you see it on paper, but until you see it like in reality, you're like, oh, now I kind of get how they're breaking into pods
I've
or something.
visited a couple of different schools,
Yeah.
myself and Dr. Rizzi and Katie Pino and Okian. We all went to Norwood as well. So we have been visiting
So you-
other different, you know, schools and seen different connections. And I haven't seen anything that looks like this. But I have seen, you know, the collaborative spaces, which are these salmon colored dots. And you know, I want to make sure, and we've discussed this in our working groups and in the individual meetings that we've had, that those spaces have to be really carefully planned out, because we did go to Norwood and I saw what Norwood's was like, and it was like at the end of a corridor where there was no supervision, and so that wouldn't work at Stoughton. So we want to make sure that they're in a space that there is supervision, so that they are utilized. So we have been out and we have seen some of the other schools and the designs. So this is the first time I'm seeing this document. It's much different than this morning's, which is
Have you seen a school that resembles what we're looking for here in such a way so
Or
that,
do you
I
guys
think
have
that,
one?
I think Mike's made a good point.
Have you seen
Somebody
one
might
like-
say,
I've
well, if
seen-
you went to this school, you can see exactly what we're talking
well,
about.
I think every school is different
Right.
and unique to their culture and climate. But I've
Okay.
seen pieces
All right.
of
Exactly
schools
what
that
I
I
was
like, that we've talked about and that I've included in the ed plan and that I can see in this diagram here.
We can line up visits too to, again, we don't have any school that's exactly like
Yeah,
Cedar,
you're
but we
talking,
have
yeah, you're talking
pieces.
about this like it's a floor plan, and it really isn't.
Adjacency
No, I'm
diagram.
looking at it, I know it's
Yeah.
not a floor plan, it's,
Even
people
organizationally.
that are going to vote on this project have the visualization of how schools used to be versus how they can be. 21st century
Yep,
schools.
I understand that, right.
And selling people on it because once they do see a floor plan or whatever, they,
Yeah.
you know, it's how something is set up today and why would you want a big space in the middle there? Some people may not understand that, you know, how you could utilize that space in today's
But
education.
It does have a couple key concepts, though, about adjacencies, like we said, where the library learning commons does want to be near the classroom
Sure.
spaces, not at one end of the building. So in that sense, it is a central kind of
Yeah.
space. It may not literally end up being in the center of the building, but it is in close proximity. And again, when you think about things three-dimensionally, it may mean things are stacked. And likewise, the cafeteria, one of the notions is with these kinds of spaces today, and I think in accordance with what we were just talking about, the MSBA's desire to utilize spaces more, that cafeterias now are labeled student commons because, one, they serve breakfast, they're a congregating place for kids before school, after school, even during school sometimes.
And then the
for
community
projects.
uses that for
Yeah,
their
and
form.
the community uses it, and it can function as kind of a lobby to the auditorium or a lobby to the gym. You can set
Right.
up concession stands, you can sell, things there before and after events. So
It also
in that
serves as
sense-
breakout space during
Yeah.
the morning and afternoon.
So again, it may not literally end up in this location,
Right.
but it's meant to be in
But that's what I was
proximity
kind of
to-
getting about, is those
Yeah.
multi-use spaces. Sometimes you
Yeah.
walk in, at first, how someone uses it the first time you see it is you think that's all it's used for, but it has the multiple spaces. And these common collaboration spaces, how
Yeah.
does, what does that look like? They're like little
These
mini
are often-
auditoriums, or the little bigger breakout rooms?
I've seen two different things.
Yeah.
And I've seen a couple of different diagrams that were presented at the ed planning visioning thing as
Visioning
well.
session.
So it can be anything from just a little space where there's a table or a couple of movable furniture. Could be a place where there's like some more comfortable furniture, or it could be something more that has sort of some risers where there can be sort of a presentation space.
It's roughly double the size of
So-
a classroom, maybe, or is that, does it matter?
Well, sometimes it uses the adjacent corridor space.
Well, actually, that's the way
Supplement.
I've seen it, Mike. Actually, the project I'm working on now, middle school in Holden, they widened the corridor down in one of the pods. And actually, Carl, I think you did that in the Boston schools in Milton. And that becomes the collaboration space. People just around that pod basically come out into the corridor and they gather there. In fact, the middle school in Milton actually had some risers with carpet on it in the corner and everything. It was kind of cool.
So for our teachers, we have a lot of times where teachers that teach the same thing or teach similar subjects, or maybe don't teach anything similar at all, but are kind of interested in the same topic, they want to bring in somebody to talk, or they want to combine classes. Right now, there's not that opportunity to do so. And since we're only asking for like one large lecture hall kind of space, and the Black Box Theater is going to be used primarily for our growing and thriving drama program, then we want a space for those people to be able to do that without having to, shut down some other part of the building.
Actually, that's what I was envisioning, is the widened corridor and as opposed to a totally separate room type of thing.
So we started this meeting talking about surveys. So if, say this conceptually is kind of the direction you want to go, is this a little cart before the horse because we haven't defined what your usable space on that plot is yet? Or are you going to fit this to whatever's
No, I
buildable?
think it's just the opposite, where you want to think about the educational program first and the conceptual diagrams and adjacencies first before you design anything.
I want credit for it to be, for being.
So we want to get this right
Upside down.
before we design anything.
I know, but you're doing core sampling and surveys and geothermal
Right.
analysis. What if that tells you you don't have,
Buildable area out there?
or what if it tells you it's different than where you are now, the footprint you're on now, or will this conform to whatever you end up being able to use on that plot of land?
Well, that's going to be a contribution to it. For example, I always look at this, the stuff at the head of time with the geotech, more as a thing where you're eliminating things as opposed to finding things.
Or more precisely.
Geotechnical.
It's going to show us the cost of developing that land.
Land, right.
It's highly unlikely that it's not developable.
All usable for what
But
you want to
it
do.
is
have to-
possible that it is so
If it were-
unuseful, we might have to go to the current building and do a renovation and addition.
Right. 'Cause
If
that
it
hasn't been
were a
decided
dump or
yet.
something, had very, unacceptable material under there,
Right.
we can still put a cost on either putting piles through that onto good soil or clearing it out. It's unlikely that there's anything that's gonna preclude us from developing the property
There
there.
allegedly is a stream under the existing building.
We don't think anything is buried back
I
there.
do.
Jimmy Hoffa.
Wondering where he was.
The other thing, Rick, is
Conceptual thing, it's
if-
not.
we sort of knew,
Just
even
how-
before we started
Brain bubble, yeah.
Before we started this process and came to a bottom line that said the new building is gonna be perhaps 216,000, we knew the enrollment from the very first day, so we knew approximately enough information to do, a diagram like this, to say the footprint of a new building is, gonna be somewhere within that size. That could be anywhere from 180,000 to 260,000 or something, but depending on how many floors and so forth. we had enough information even before doing
Interesting,
this
that's only like
When you
20% of
take-
the available square
to
footage.
identify things, yeah.
When you take a look at the photographs from when they built the original school, you can see a small open field around it.
Yeah.
That each show was mostly, one part of it was park, another part was farmland. So there's never been anything built there, that we know of.
You know, there was a stream that came through here that's now in a pipe, you know, we know there are those issues and things like that, but, the information's only gonna help us refine the cost of developing the land.
Sure.
It's not gonna preclude us from applying this now to these options.
But like Julie was saying too, we're not there yet as far as also ad reno. We still need to do this too.
Right, and
for
now
ad
that we
reno.
have this, and somewhat the idealized diagram, we wanna try and apply this to the existing school. Say, how could the existing facility be renovated, added to try to approximate this kind of adjacencies?
You gonna have enough time to do all of this?
Sure.
Okay.
What we have to do now is just submit the possibilities to them.
No, I understand, but
We'll be
you have said
evaluating
yourself that
in
the
September.
MSBA has been looking for more detailed stuff in this.
Yeah, we've got, you know, more
Okay.
detail that goes with that
All right.
sort of thing.
So that was actually the item number 3. We're talking about the existing site options, and you're bringing up.
Yeah, we
The
think there are at least, you know, in addition to the ad renos, which we identified, there are at least probably 4 possibilities there. We think there are at least 4 possibilities for new construction too, based on location on the site. And as we said, when we look at that, the 4 areas are kind of defined, this may sound kind of inverted logic or something, but we take the athletic facilities, the track, football field, they're pretty large shapes that can't be really changed. The building is more malleable, you know, we can shape that. The track is an oval, the football field is a rectangle of a certain dimension. So actually, each of these options is kind of defined by where can you put the track and where can you put the football field and what space is left over then. And we can shape a building into that. So there's, you know, one that slides the track up a little bit and gives us the building close to Adams Street and the end of the site. Another says, you know, we might be able to get, you know, here, I'm sorry, the track we didn't draw, but the football field are side by side. Here, if they're 90 degrees to each other, it leaves a more rectangular space for a new school. If we kind of flip that now and put the track near Adams Street, it slides the building in into more of the center of the site. And if we were to take it and slide it even further to develop, you know, more athletic fields on Pearl and Adams Street, you know, the 4th option is putting the building more central to the site.
Is
That
the
number
track and
4 is
field,
interesting.
when you move it, is that all costs that are covered as part of this project? It's not, right?
Well, it is eligible for reimbursement.
Some of it is.
Up to a certain amount.
The
yeah.
state puts a cap, though, on how much money they'll reimburse of site expenses.
Right.
And generally, in a project of this scale, not all of it gets covered, even though it's eligible. It's eligible to do a track and football field and baseball field and football field for a high school. Those
The
are
cap
all
is currently
eligible.
8% of the cost of the building, I think.
Exactly.
So if the building costs $50 million, your cap is 8% of that for all site work, including site utilities, which
Right,
surprised the
right.
hell out of me.
Lots,
money,
fields,
Everything.
So inevitably, it doesn't cover everything. But you need to develop those. I mean, that, in addition to the space summary, we will also be confirming the exterior program of the building, so to speak, too. How many parking spaces should there be? You know, there should be a bus drop-off, there should be a car drop-off, there should be so many fields. And right now, our baseline assumption is that we're gonna recreate the fields that are there. A track, a soccer field, multi-soccer, lacrosse, football field,
Yeah.
and tennis courts.
Teams can park in Adams.
One wild card is the skate park, as to whether we still need to accommodate that on this site too, or not. It's technically not part of the high school, it's part of the Park and Rec Department,
Yep.
and clearly would not be eligible for
It's a
reimbursement.
skate park?
Right now.
Been the
Skate
bleachers.
park's behind the
Really?
high school
And-
bleachers, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, I was thinking the wrong area. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right
Oh.
down by the
If you park,
middle school.
if you park in the middle school parking lot off Cushing, you can see.
Tell
the
my
skate
son,
park.
he's a skateboarder.
It's right
PJ's
behind
out
the,
there a lot.
Is that TJ's out there?
That's how
So
we
that's
really
how
got
that's how he hurt his leg.
Not owning up.
Okay. He made up the excuse that it was hanging Christmas lights.
Actually, he was unhanging.
Yeah,
Taking
right.
down Christmas lights.
Right.
So,
So
just,
where are we,
those are all
Tom?
the components that will go into this preliminary design program submission, along with the evaluation of the existing building.
so right now, we're wrapping the summary up. Julie, you're pretty much wrapped up your final draft of the ed plan, right? So you'll need Dr. Rizzi to review that.
And I
then,
promised it would go to the working group by tomorrow, so it will,
as promised, right?
as promised.
We have a working group meeting on Friday. Are we going to be taking a final look at it on then? A week from tomorrow.
Yes.
We'll be taking a final look at
That's
it then?
that's why we had the goal to get this out, so
Right.
so we
Goes to
can.
the school committee the next week.
Yeah,
I-
okay,
so-
good, all right.
So the goal is that Julie completes this with, you know, whatever you have to do, and then we'll send it out to the entire committee, not just the working group.
No, I think that's the way to do it, sure.
Fine. And then I'll coordinate with Dr. Rizzi as far as the presentation. There was a discussion also when we make the presentation to the school committee that we invite, I believe, the chair of this, TJ, was it the selectmen we wanted to have?
Chairman of the Board of Selectmen.
Chair of the selectmen. And it might,
I thought we were gonna invite them all.
Yeah, we were gonna
Better
invite them
invite the
all.
entire
I'll
board.
I'll take care of that.
okay.
Does the larger group get a copy of that educational?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Once Julie's finished, I'm sending it out to
Okay, I
the
didn't know if I
entire
had to go to
committee.
school committee. I didn't know what was the process.
So they'll see
Have
that.
you seen it yet, or?
No, I'm not on that working group,
That's all
so I
right.
wouldn't see it now
No, that's okay.
until it's done.
It's really good.
I'm sure it is.
Can.
Yeah, it's not
No, I'll wait
secret.
till it's done.
He did a good job.
Not secret.
You can imagine.
Pretty comprehensive.
So that being said,
You're sitting there going, hey, that's a good
I think
idea.
we're on schedule going forward. So you should by Monday morning see the final ed plan draft that's going
Outstanding.
to be presented. So,
I want to thank the smaller group and all the extra hours that have been put forward.
Working group, yes.
so it's a strong
I
foundation.
thought we were going to get free coffee, but it turned out that wasn't the
They
case.
haven't given us anything.
No
No
senior
food,
discount,
no
nothing.
Nothing.
Wait a minute.
He did once. He did
Yeah,
treat
Yeah, right,
once.
right.
That was just to rope
Getting
us
no
in.
love for that job.
There'll be one on the
Stay
exit, too.
longer.
So I think we're also saying, Carl, that the ed spec that we've got here, proposed space summary is probably what we're going with now. I think everybody's,
There might be a
at least
few
from the
tweaks
district side,
when the
okay.
superintendent reviews the program, but
Okay, and do we anticipate any tweaks from the school committee? You don't know. Actually, you wouldn't know, I guess, come to think of it.
Their policy board.
Well, this is big policy.
Oh, it is.
Well, I don't know. What do you think, TJ?
See what they say.
Well, yeah, I can't imagine them sitting down and digesting it all in one meeting.
Right.
Because this is, we've been doing this with the working group for 3 meetings,
Yeah.
something like that. And, you know, I have a pretty firm grasp of everything on it right now, but you guys looking at it for the first time, I imagine you have questions that you don't even know you'll have until tomorrow when you
Oh.
look at it, but.
It begs the
I'd be up all
question
night
that
with this.
if we're making this presentation to the school committee, do we have an interim meeting? Do we have do we send these documents
typically they get documents in advance.
much far
right?
What I
further in
would
advance?
suggest.
Yeah,
They have to.
absolutely.
And I would imagine they would review primarily the narrative. That talks more about policy. and
That's the
program.
policy
But-
part of it,
but I'm
right?
just
This
saying-
committee have a,
Well, do we have,
It is.
I'm just trying to see what will happen when we meet up with them officially. Do we need to have an interim meeting if there are questions prior to? That way we're not spending hours on,
That's what
On-
Michael was
on-
just
That's
asking.
what I was just asking
Oh.
Julie, if we can
An
have them
interim
send
meeting
the
of
questions
this
to the
committee.
administration.
of the school
So
committee.
we can begin the answers
Or-
before they ever meet.
Or could you just develop, or in tandem with that, develop some FAQs? You know they're gonna ask these questions, or they've already been asked, and you've already answered them, or whatever.
Yeah, we're a little bit of a handicap without Carol on the committee, unfortunately.
Yeah.
so-
Yeah, right.
Timing,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
a problem.
yeah.
questions.
But I don't know if we mentioned, we did meet with the school committee, by the way.
Right, we did.
Yes, you made
And
a
gave them an
presentation.
overview.
And gave them an overview.
I
of
saw you
where
on
we're at.
television.
We didn't get into this, level of detail, obviously, with them at that time.
So I guess I'm asking the question is that once I get the draft and I send it out to this committee, I would think we'd like to send it out to the school committee also.
Yeah, I would agree.
Absolutely.
And maybe in coordination with Dr. Rizzi, I'm just thinking about once they digest the ed plan, who do they go back to? As
To
far
go to
as-
Maggie.
And that's what I was thinking, so
Oh,
I
yeah.
would think in coordination with Dr. Rizzi, so.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
I would actually ask that Maggie send out the ed plan to the
Yeah.
school committee. Or
Probably a
Dr.
better
Rizzi.
idea.
Okay,
So, and space summary.
yep.
Some
that's-
of this,
so-
yeah.
When's she coming back?
I think she's in next week.
Next week? Okay.
No, she said she was gonna be off for 2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks.
So I will forward it to the committee. I'll wait till I talk to Dr. Rizzi. We'll forward the ed plan to the school committee along with the space summary. And if the school committee wants to sort of have a breakout with DRA and Compass, we can accommodate him before the school committee meeting
You're going to pass it to the school committee through.
Dr. Rizzi.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I would think since Julie and her group of people spent all this time doing it, and no offense, Julie's the educator. Many people aren't educated. And, I mean, granted, I may not agree with everything that's here, but this is what she does. We don't, this isn't etched in stone. The school committee could say, I mean, not the school, the MSBA could say yay and nay. It's not, this is not an exact. And I think they have to know that, the school committee should know that this isn't, but her team has worked for this. She's the educator. She knows what she needs in that school. She knows what she needs for special education. The MSBA says you need so much for science. So, I mean, as a former member of school committee, you don't know what the school, you only hear it from the people like Julie and Dr. Rizzi. So I don't think they'll have much of an issue accepting it if that's what you're trying to get their blessing or something like that, because it's not an exact. We really don't know yet. You know, this is our guideline.
The
Plus, I heard it's not too much out of the
Right.
realm of what they normally deal with.
Right.
That was a,
The MSBA normally asks for the blessing of the school committee before they finalize anything, so.
Right, but this isn't our final plan.
No, I understand
Yeah.
that, but,
By and large, I mean, it's just nickel and diming on space here
Right.
and there, but,
yeah.
Right.
and then broad issues like I was bringing up earlier, whether or not we'll have the space as
Right.
opposed to.
That's another argument.
But I don't know how they could say, no, 250 square feet is too much. Too
Well,
much
they
to
won't-
add to that. I mean, they would just,
Gotta get rid of the bathroom then, TJ, if you want that 250.
I didn't see any bathrooms on here.
Ah, yeah,
You're not allowed to go.
That's in that
We're saving
have to
costs
bring-
that way.
net to gross factor.
That's the grossing factor, the
Corridors,
gross factor.
stairways.
just have to bring mayonnaise jars.
Elevators, all those things, they're not
But it-
quantified.
But periodically, it is important that we report to the school committee since this
Yes, yeah.
group, so this is part of that reporting process. And
Absolutely.
so- Okay.
Carl, you brought up a very interesting thing. On the end here, you put down number 2, total building gross floor area includes the entire building gross square footage measured from the outside face of the exterior walls. And do you want to put a note in there? But you actually made a good point. I hadn't really thought about it. Includes bathrooms, stairwells, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, this is
Well-
their form.
No, I understand.
We don't mess with it.
I know, but the school committee is going to see this, and this is going to become a public
I can
document.
explain
We
that.
can
I'll
clarify
leave it.
that.
Okay, all right. In that case, never mind.
Probably, I wouldn't have noticed it. I'm sure that they,
Yeah, this is in the Sim City.
That's
Any
good.
other questions?
Looks good.
Thank you.
Everybody? So, a little homework coming your way shortly to look at. All right, we really checked off pretty much everything. Now it's just
voice?
paying bills,
Invoices.
approval of invoice package.
Do you have those?
We have,
Did you pull one out?
for the month of July, we have a Compass invoice of $7,177. And for DRA, this is their second invoice, we have an amount of $81,250. The total for the vendor invoice package for this month is $88,100. $80,427.
What was the
I'll make a
compass?
motion to approve all
What was-
Bonnie's page.
Sorry, what was
Recommend.
the compass number again?
Compass's number was $7,177.
That's okay.
Great, so there was a motion to
D.
approve.
Recommend approval.
For
Recommend
payment to
approval for-
DRA and,
Compass.
Compass,
both?
thank you.
And
I'd
that was,
second
July
that
and
total
motion.
amount was again,
$88,427.
great. And there was a second. Any further discussion?
Who's second? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Rick.
Rick.
I did.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And
Okay, and next is the approval of the minutes. What I did was, when I sent out the minutes, I had the attachment of the electronically, I attached the backing. I think you saw that. I did make a hard copy, but what I have here for you to look at is just the minutes itself, so. Sure.
July 9th, right?
Yeah, he made a change on it.
All right.
Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Do we have to say with the amendment?
Yes. You have to tell.
But who was the one who,
Yes, Mike, it was Mike Conley.
Mike Conley seconded?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of July 9th, 2015, with the change that item, number 7.
It was actually the motion to adjourn.
Oh, I'm sorry, in the motion to adjourn that Mike Conley seconded it, not Michael Hartman.
Yeah. So I would,
We've done that from Iowa.
so I will amend those minutes based on that.
Great.
I second it.
Anything further? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great.
Next meeting is,
This meeting, I think it's the 17th.
no, it's
Oh, I'm sorry.
September 1st is a Monday, I think.
Labor Day is
Given
late.
the
It's
amount of work
six.
that we're going to be doing next month.
12th is a
September 10th?
Saturday.
September 10th is the
September 10th.
second Thursday.
So
Yeah,
September 10th?
Yeah, that's what I
September
think.
10th.
Okay, and unless we hear otherwise, we're going to have it here?
You were looking about a different.
Yeah, I think we talked about, but I think we can still manage to meet here next time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Until we get people showing up at least.
Is there a rough
Who's
idea,
gonna show up
Well,
at
and eventually, when people start to show up, we'll
I'm
move to
part
the
of
grade.
rough idea on the form date?
at Town Hall, 10 Pearl Street.
Check
Third
the dates.
week of- yeah, well,
Third week of September.
Selectmen want the meetings held here.
That's fine.
so we'll be talking about that.
Invoice for Rita.
It's an awful lot of work between now and when you want to submit this thing, dude.
Do we make a motion to adjourn?
Yes, please.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye,
Aye. And it's Joel Walk, not Joel Harding, that seconded that
Yes.
motion.